Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Here's our buddy Mitch Fick from Iowa's News Now. We'll get with Mitch in just a moment. James Vandenberg going to join us, the former Hawkeye quarterback. Speaking of quarterback, that is the topic du jour for sure for the next couple weeks, if not the rest of the season. Deacon Hill now helming the Iowa Hawkeyes team at quarterback after James. We'll close out the show with a new feature we're producing here. And it's a gambling feature. A good friend of mine for many, many years from Northeast Iowa, another one of the Northeast Iowa crew, Mitch. He's from the North Fayette Valley area, Claremont, Elgin. I'm from Postville, so Scott and I have known each other for years. Scott Pritchard, pritchardspicks.com, professional gambler from Vegas, 30-plus years, very successful. But before all of that, we get to our good buddy Mitch Fick from Iowa's News Now. Mitch, how you doing, my friend?
Great to see you as always.
Good to see you as always as well. Thanks for doing this. You're fresh off of the presser today from Kirk Ferentz. A lot of player availability today. Let's get right to it. Less of me, more of you. What was said today, my friend?
Well, I mean, anybody who saw the video kind of put the pieces together, but Kirk Ferentz confirming Cade McNamara is out for the rest of the year, did his ACL there on that quasi-scramble against MSU. So it is Deacon Hill's show the rest of the way. We'll talk about that in a little bit too, but it does sound like Cade's plan is to come back to the Hawkeyes in 2024. Again, in a calendar year, he's done both knees now and the quad injury from Kids Day. So, man, I can't imagine the physical journey he's about to go on again, alongside the mental strain of knowing what that rehab process is over a year. So, obviously, we're all sending the best to Cade and his family through everything. Just an immensely tough spot for a guy who has been so embraced and beloved in his short time in Iowa City, named a captain, has been a leader from day one. But the philosophy has always been next man in, and Deacon Hill becomes that man.
You know, Mitch, when you talk about that and what he brought to this team, what you and I have discussed off the air, let's bring it on the air with Deacon Hill, and we're going to talk to James Vandenberg. Nobody knows that story as well as James, with a guy you had on your show last week. And again, check out all of Mitch's information at the bottom of the screen, along with mine and all of our guests throughout the show. It'll direct you to Mitch's podcast, Eye on the Hawks, and all the other fine work that you and ONC bring in the rest of your crew at Iowa's News Now. The thing I love to talk about with Deacon Hill, and we're going to talk to James Vandenberg about this, as you and I talked about, nobody knows what it's like to be the guy to replace the guy like James Vandenberg. And now Deacon Hill is that guy. You know, in Vandenberg's case, it was Ricky Stanzi, a guy you had on, did a very nice job interview with him. And boy, I'll tell you, when you take a look at that, Mitch, Deacon Hill got a lot of first team reps because of Cade's quad injury, as you talked about, coming out that knee injury. I'm not saying best case scenario by any stretch. Sure. But what I am saying is kind of what you and I talked about off the air. Let's bring it on the air. It's not like Deacon Hill is ill-equipped for this. He's ready. Should be ready.
Deacon Hill is a kid who comes from a Big Ten program in Wisconsin, who was a four-star recruit coming out of high school, who has an incredible athletic pedigree. His parents are both incredible athletes. His sister's an Olympian. I mean, he's a dude, as the kids say. And he got all that time, not just in fall camp with the ones after Cade hurt his quad, but he was the number one guy all through spring as everybody was beat up. So he probably has more time with the ones than Cade did. Obviously, Cade has all the experience. He has a Big Ten championship. He was brought to Iowa City for a reason. Yeah. But Deacon Hill isn't some scrub that's getting thrown in there. I think Deacon probably is a starter starting the season at a lot of other spots.
Yes.
And I think that kind of gets lost in the mix of the hoopla around Cade. And then, in January or wherever it was, we find out, oh, this kid from Wisconsin's coming. You're like, all right, cool, but Cade's right here.
Yeah.
And I think if you really just look at the player is the eyeball test from not just the spring but the fall, and then just even those snaps against Michigan State, he looks like a guy, it's easy to feel, I think, at least from my perspective, a little more comfortable about things. It's not ideal, but he's a dude that I think can step in.
And if folks, a type who aren't familiar with him, big, strong, a guy, as you said, the dude with a hand cannon. I mean, got an arm.
I asked Kirk today. You can't help but look at him and draw parallels to Nathan Chandler and
That's
to Nate
another
Stanley.
One, yeah.
Just big dudes with big hosses that can toss, I suppose you would qualify.
Very
them
nice.
And boy, Nate Stanley, again, who didn't have the weight that Deacon did. I think he's about 20 pounds lighter, but similar heights and light feet for their frames, who just can chuck it downfield and can make time with their feet, find their targets. This is a perfect example of, you look at Deacon's stat line from the game, 11 to 27 for 115, a touchdown and a pick. that doesn't tell the story.
Right.
The drops were such a huge narrative. So if you add those into Deacon's stat line and just look at the eyeball of like that ball was right here on the numbers or in the hands on a couple, putting where the receiver needs the ball to be to make a play, that's almost as encouraging as anything else. The receiver's got to make the play.
Right.
But if you're talking about your number 2 guy coming in, his most extensive playing time since his senior year of high school, which was shortened because of COVID-19 and the pandemic, you can't ask for much more from that kid. And with all the time he's got with the ones, that's why I can't help but be optimistic about it.
And let's you and I also talk about, you take a look at what happened. Rick, sure, we get it. Cade's out, and it's a huge blow to the team. But let's not lose stock here, and I'm not saying you are, but for those that are being negative, you see it online all over the place, on social as well. 4-1, they win a big game, 26-16. Oh, by the way, I can't believe we've gotten this deep into the show and haven't mentioned Cooper DeJean yet. But by the way, the Big Ten's Special Teams Player of the Week, and congrats to Jackson as well for being co-defensive player of the week, Nick Jackson, and in the Big Ten. But, Mitch, the Hawkeyes are still 4-1. The chance for rubber to meet the road now that you got these crossover games, there's still Rutgers left as a conference East-West crossover. But now you get into it. Now we're talking divisional Big Ten West games with Purdue homecoming this week, 2:30 kick on the Peacock Network, streaming network. And then the following week, homecoming on your stations, on this station, Fox 28, Hawks 3 o'clock, go to Wisconsin, face the Badgers. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but those are 2 huge games, and Mitch, most importantly, they're in the West.
Yeah.
So all is not lost here. We're 4-1. The Hawks are. Yes, Cade McNamara's out. Deacon Hill's in. But, and Jazz Patterson, I want some other updates on some injuries you got today, and I don't want to prattle on here, but you hear a lot of these, people toeing the ledge. Don't jump, because a lot of good is happening here yet, Mitch.
I think if you told people at the beginning of the year, hey, the Hawks are going to be 4-1 with a loss at Penn State through 5 games, you're going to lose at some point for varying degrees of time. Your starting quarterback, your starting tight end, your top 2 running backs, and Nick DeYoung got knocked out, and it sounds like he'll be back as well, but your offensive line's been a little beat up, and you're still 4-1. I think a lot of people would take that. And I think, even though I think a lot of people are unfamiliar with Deacon, starting to get familiar now, everything is still on the table. I don't think just in terms of what your goals are, but I would argue almost the expectation as well. The expectation should still be, we've got this defense, we've got this special teams, we've got an offense that shows sparks no matter what people would like to see in a perfect world out of that offense. It's complementary. It's doing its job to help out the defense. I think the expectation is still the Iowa Hawkeyes can win the Big Ten West. We're going to learn a lot in Madison next weekend, and then you got Minnesota coming after that. And again, don't want to get too far ahead, but I think there's ample opportunity for this Hawkeye offense and this Hawkeye team in general to continue to move forward. You said, brought up Jazz Patterson. He will be out this week. Caleb Johnson is back at practice. What a huge get that would be to have him back. LeSean Daniels from a different era of Hawkeye football. And then, of course, what Kamari and TJ have done in the backfield too, just to get bodies back there behind that line to help out this running game, as it's going to be a tough task to run against Purdue, but just getting those bodies back there, getting Caleb those reps again, so when you get ready to go to Madison and you welcome the Gophers in a couple weeks, you're ready to go and hopefully are even more healthy, and then Deacon's got his snaps and you're in a better position. But it all starts with this week, and I don't think anything is off the table for this Hawkeye team in 2020.
100% agree, and as you said, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but after Minnesota's the bye, and then the battle at Wrigley against Northwestern. So, but Purdue has been a bugaboo to the Hawks now. I get it that Braum is no longer coaching there, is now back at his alma mater of Louisville, or back where he started everything. But still, the fact of the matter is Purdue has not been an easy foe for Iowa. It is a Western Division foe. So I agree with you. As much as I want to look ahead to Wisconsin game, Minnesota, a bye, and then Northwestern, you can't. And we hear this from James Vandenberg every week and James Morris. Kirk Ferentz won't allow that, trust me. And that's one thing Mitch, as well as being in that facility.
And this is a Purdue team that if you look at them on paper, you see 2-3, you see losses at home to Fresno State. They lost to Syracuse, a Fresno State team that, by the way, is 5-0 and ranked in the top 25 now. That's a very, very
and has been
team.
A good program for years.
Have been, going back to the David
Pat Hill era,
and all that.
As the coach.
They're a really good team. Hudson Card was a guy I was really high on coming into the season, coming from Texas, the experience that he had. Threw 2 picks in a game not too long ago, but just a guy that doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot, who is a steady force for there. And then, of course, Tyrone Tracy, back against the Hawkeyes again and leading the team in rushing, and has really grown these last couple weeks, really putting up some nice numbers. He's scored in every single game. And again, they're always going to have a David Bell type guy, some receiver that's going to cause trouble. They still have that as well. It's a Purdue team that just knows to play against this Iowa team, knows how to play, and always has some weapons and schemes and different looks that are going to make things difficult. And that's what makes it such a great Big Ten West rivalry, as much as people probably don't want to admit that. It's always great when the Boilermakers and Hawkeyes tangle.
He is Mitch Fick, folks. He's with Iowa's News Now, news anchor, but sports guy as well. And I love the fact that you started off as a sports guy, went to Michigan, you worked there, and you and Owen came back and created and are doing a great job. Owen Sebring on Eye on the Hawks, your podcast. Again, all of Mitch's information at the bottom of the screen. Freeze frame it if you need to. All the links are there. He has it on his social media. Great stuff. And Mitch, I look forward to catching up with you in a couple weeks. Thank you so much. Great seeing you again.
Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. For Mitch Fick, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more. And former Hawkeye quarterback James Vandenberg. Then we'll close out the show with a gambling segment with professional gambler and Iowa native Scott Pritchard in Vegas now. So back with more Hawkeye in a few moments.
To have a strong finish, you need an excellent start. It's true on the track and also in the field. That's why Mershman Seeds works tirelessly to deliver cutting-edge technology year after year. Introducing Starting Line, Mershman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment, now providing added protection from white mold and sudden death syndrome all season. Ask for Starting Line seed treatment from Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. You see our buddy James Vandenberg joining us on the screen. James, former Hawkeye quarterback. James, let's get right to it right here, right now. Big news, unfortunate news, but Cade McNamara, Mitch Fick was just on before you, and he was at the press conference today, so Cade McNamara is done for the year, does have another year left, said he plans on coming back, although it's early in the process. But James, most importantly, and thank you as always for joining us, great to see you. You know what it's like as well or better than anybody to be the man to replace the man. When Rick Stanzi went down, injured, you stepped in. You see Deacon Hill had some dropped passes. I've talked to Marvin McNutt in the past, your former receiver as well as Rick Stanzi's, and he said, yeah, Dave, no excuses, but there is a difference from quarterbacks, a different type of pass or a ball. So I'm not excusing anybody either, but to see Deacon Hill come in and do what he did, and James, we know he had a lot of first-team reps in the spring and summer because of Cade McNamara coming back from a quad injury after his knee injury. So talk to us a little bit about this process of being a backup and being jettisoned into the starting lineup.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, I think he did a great job. I mean, to step into that scenario is never easy. He did better than me. I think my first pass was an interception when I came in with Rick. Is that statistically? I think it was, or it was the first drive for sure. It was maybe it was the first drive. I can't remember. Regardless, I thought he did a good job. It's a tough spot. Yes, he got probably more reps than normal in the offseason, but still, all of a sudden, one play you're not in, and you're kind of the play caller, signaler on the sideline, to being in is a pretty drastic change. So all things considered, I thought he came in, and I thought he executed pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. And if I remember the story correctly, as you've told me many times in the past on radio and TV here, and if I remember the game correctly, I think it was your first pass, actually, because you started off by telling me that, saying, yeah, Dave, when I got put in, my first pass was a pick. But regardless, it was early. But you rallied away from that, and your team rallied.
Fun fact, high school was the same way when I was a sophomore, I think.
Well, and that worked out really well because you won a state championship at Keokuk, and you're in the Iowa Football Sports High School Hall of Fame. So if that's the way to start a career, maybe that's not a bad road to hoe.
We're in the trust tree here, Dave. We're in the trust tree here.
That's right. I love it. But see, and you see the team rallying around Deacon and everybody getting together, and Eric Hall after a few early drops with McNamara in the game. My goodness, that touchdown pass he caught was just almost a pitch. It counted as a pass. He carried, 3 or 4 Michigan State guys into the end zone. I mean, that was unreal to see what Eric Hall did.
Yeah, no, that was a great play. Obviously, there was missed plays out there, but we did what we had to do to win a game in a tough circumstance when you lose your quarterback. So once again, I'm sure there's plenty of clambering out there for change this, do that, don't do this. Let's just say something, though, that nobody at Iowa would actually say. And it's like, what if other teams lost their starting quarterback, their starting running backs, their starting tight ends? Would any team just be operating on all cylinders? Luckily at Iowa, we kind of preach next man up. We do a good job prepping our twos and developing guys. But nothing has gone just super smooth to date, and we've handled it all in stride, and people need to understand that.
Absolutely. And James, 4-1, but here's where the important part comes in. All the next games, except the Rutgers game later in the season, are all Big Ten West games. So let's you and I get specific. You're Deacon Hill, and you were Deacon Hill years ago. Coming in as the backup, it's homecoming. At Kinnick Stadium, 2:30 kick on the Peacock streaming network, 2:30 kick, Saturday afternoon. What is happening with Deacon Hill and the rest of the Hawkeyes? Take us in the now QB1's helmet. What's happening with all this excitement of homecoming?
He's experiencing a pretty big change this week. I mean, first of all, just the media after the game, now this week. That's a different vibe. His overall workload's just going to be a little bit heavier. Not that you're not doing things at number 2, but when you are the guy, you need to know all the ins and the outs even more. So I would say his workload's a little heavier, but it goes back to, like you brought up, he's taken a lot of these reps. He's got to throw to a lot of these guys. He's taken snaps from Logan Jones. A lot of that stuff is not going to be just as new as maybe a true number 2 in a normal year would have been. So he's going to get to absorb the game plan like by himself as the leader this week. And that'll be a little bit different vibe, but I look forward to seeing how he performs. And I think everybody on the team is aware that that's a tough spot to be put in. It's a tough spot. So to go in and perform and to not kind of lock up and to throw the ball pretty well and to execute the game plan, I mean, that people see that and they feel that. And whatever his grade was or wasn't, from what I'm watching, it's like he stepped in and he executed. He might have thrown a ball too high here, too wide there. That's going to happen. He stepped in. It wasn't too big for him, and he got a Big Ten win.
But assure us again, as us fans and us viewers, I got to believe KF and BF and the rest of the coaching staff and everybody in the facility, none of those players are looking ahead, are they, James?
No, the tougher it gets, the better we're going to do. And historically speaking, we tend to be better in October than we are in September, tend to be better in November than we are October. I mean, that's how we build our team. We want to keep improving, and we're in the middle of a Big Ten year. We're about to enter kind of the meat of the schedule here. We haven't lost anything except the ability to be undefeated. So everything we want is still out in front of us.
Great stuff from you as always. And again, the best guy to talk to right now, because as we all know, James, the most favored guy on the team is always the backup quarterback. And now he's no longer the backup quarterback, as you're laughing. You experienced that as well, didn't you?
Yeah, then you become the starter and you get blamed for everything. That's not totally true. That's kind of a joke. But yeah, it's a great opportunity. When you're a backup, you want to play. So unfortunately, it happens in these type of circumstances, but it's an opportunity, and it's one that I think we should all be kind of excited to see how Deacon continues to handle it.
I think you nailed it as always, James. And as we always say, and you know it is true as well, you want the opportunity, but starting quarterbacks and head coaches get way too much credit and way too much blame. So that has been a football axiom forever, so we live with it and move forward. But James, great to see you as always. Look forward to catching up with you next week, and thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
My pleasure as always. Folks, he is James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback, and now doing very well in the financial planning industry, in the financial world, as you see all of James's information on the bottom of the screen along with mine throughout this segment. So for James Vandenberg, I'm Dave O'Hara, and Hawkeye. We'll be back with more to close out the show with Scott Pritchard, professional gambler in Vegas and Iowa native. Can't wait to talk to Scott. So back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments.
Who do you trust to produce the best yield? A seed company that's chasing technology, or a seed company that's writing a book on it? Mershman Seeds is a leader in technology. We're independent and family-owned. Our sister company, MS Technologies, provides access to world-class traits and genetics. And our starting line seed treatment is second to none. Who can you trust with your yields? Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. There you see on the screen our buddy Scott Pritchard, Scotty P, from little old Northeast Iowa, from Claremont to Valley of Elgin. Now it's North Fayette Valley, but now Scott has taken the world by storm as a professional bettor in Vegas, 30-plus years, and you see all of Scott's information on the bottom of the screen along with mine. Freeze frame it there because most important thing you need to remember, pritchardspicks.com. Scott does a great job. He's on Sirius XM Radio. He's also on VSiN, which is the Vegas Sports Insider Network and Air Information Network. And Scott is doing something great with Circa, and we now know that Circa's in the Midwest, and so the largest sports book and casino, Circa. Viewers, so you know, Scott and I are not going to talk spreads or betting on the Iowa Hawkeye games, but Scott will have that on his website. Obviously, with things going on in and around the Iowa program, and I don't want to split our interests here, so I'll let you handle that on your time and your way. But Scotty P, thanks so much for joining me. Great seeing you, my friend. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. Really excited about being on this show. I've been tracking you and this show for quite some time, and my family and friends still reside in Northeast Iowa, and they speak so highly of you and this show, so I'm honored to be a part of it.
Truly, and thank you so much. And I think when we talk about sports betting, and the thing I love in discussing, I told you off the air, let's bring it on the air. My dad used to use an expression all the time when people would gamble, and you'd see people in the community even before it was legal, March Madness pools, that kind of thing. And he would say, you see that person there, they're a little extra nervous, they're betting with scared money. And I heard you use that expression the other day, and as you're smiling, it caused me to think of my dad, God rest his soul, but I got a huge grin on my face. Talk to us about scared money and what's that all about in the betting world, Scott?
Scared money does not get the money. You never want to bet the house. You never want to risk the mortgage. You never want to risk the groceries. Although back when I was young and dumb, or younger and dumber, when I was married 100 years ago, I can recall my wife saying to me, hey, are we still going to Cali this weekend? I said, it depends. She said, depends on what? I said, it depends on if the Clippers cover the 5.5. I don't know why that relationship didn't quite work out or last, but I have to tell you, there's a valid point to scared money does not get the money. When in doubt, don't do it. Sports betting at the highest level, it's not for the faint of heart. It is designed proactively to separate you from your money. There are so many things that you have to do to have an unfair advantage, to stick it to the sports book or your local bookie at the corner bar on Main Street across the U.S. And it really comes down to offsetting the juice, the vig, the tax, the rub, if you will, the house's edge. But I bet numbers and I bet value way more than I ever bet teams. But that's a good point. I was mentioning that on one of my social media platforms, TikTok, because one dude documented 59 wins, 41 losses betting totals, and he made the mistake of saying, hey, that's not that great of a record. It's like, dude, 52.4% is the break-even point. Anything over that, my friend, is gravy. Anything over than that, you are making money.
And what do you always say, and I love that you own this tagline, what do you say when you're making money, Scott?
Well, you have to have conviction and you have to believe in what you do. I've been fortunate having won sports handicapping contests in Las Vegas. So again, my followers on my site, pritchardspicks.com, or following me on social media, I will give out a daily free pick, and I simply tag it by saying, see the cashier.
There it is right there. I love it. Scott, you're too humble, so I'm going to say it for you. You're in a contest right now, an invitational at Circa. The bigs of the big. I mean, Stanford Steve from ESPN, Krista Bear-Felica, formerly of ESPN, now with Fox Sports. You're in second place right now. Am I correct on that still? You were at first for a while.
Yeah, you are correct, and it's the World Championship of Sports Betting. Circa, to your point, they are the world's largest, the world's best sports book, but this is the second year now that they've had the World Championship of Sports Betting. It's by invite only, and we're all competing for the coveted green jacket and $25,000, okay? So when you look at this, it's about 16 of the world's best going head-to-head. The good news is, yes, I'm in second place after 4 weeks. The bad news is we have another 14 weeks to go, and there are 15 people chasing me.
Well, your track record speaks for itself, and I love to say this in reference to you. Big fish, definitely from a small pond. Our little pond here in Iowa, but Northeast Iowa specifically. He is Scott Pritchard, folks, and again, you see all of his information on the bottom of the screen along with mine throughout this show and our guests throughout the program. So if you need to freeze frame it, you see all of Scott's information. Main thing to remember, pritchardspicks.com. Great to see your smiling face as always. Continued success and good luck, Scotty P.
Really appreciate you. I appreciate the show. Keep doing what you're doing, Dave. I'm telling you, it's working. Everyone in Iowa and across the country love you, me included.
Thank you, and I can say the same back to you. Thank you so much. Give me that See the Cashier one more time just so we get it right.
Ring up the ringer, see the cashier.
I love it. There he is, Scotty P. Scott Pritchard. Pritchard'sPicks.com. So for Scott Pritchard, James Vandenberg, and Mitch Fick, and to you, the viewing audience, and my production partner, Michael Merrick, thank you so much. That's it from Hawkeye. I'm Dave O'Hara. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you. And as always, thanks for staying tuned at the end of the program for these rolling credits to give our advertisers and sponsors the attention and credit they so richly deserve. And as always, to our aforementioned guests and to you, the viewers. That's all from us at Hawkeye. Thanks to all of you.